What's up, you sweaty nerds and greasy degenerates? Dan Hung and Bibiter Lune comes out tomorrow, and right after that we're getting Xuan and Lynx. That's right, 2 quantum sustain units, a healer and a tank, and we're finally going to be able to play the mono quantum dream teams that we have been fantasizing over for over 3 months. But there are some issues here, because mono quantum is only viable if we're able to hit certain thresholds with our team. Otherwise, mono quantum will fall off and it won't feel as fun as you might think it is. But it doesn't mean that mono quantum is bad. Mono quantum will be one of the best team comps in the entire game. However, we need to prepare for it, we need to be aware how to play it, so let's go ahead and dive into the video and stop wasting our time so that we can quickly remove these potential issues from our mind, because quantum is going to be powerful come 1.3 part 2. We just need to play around the different problems that it's going to have. And it's not that hard to figure out how to play around them, but let's go ahead and dive into it so that we can be prepared. Okay, so here we are in the team building menu, and we have this empty slot that's been lonely for so long, waiting for a Xuan or a Lynx in order to fill it. We need a mono quantum sustain for this last slot, but there are some things I want people to understand about mono quantum that you may or may not be thinking about that are very important, and if you can't do these things, your mono quantum team is simply not going to be as powerful as you think. So two very important things to remember. You need to be very skill point efficient with a mono quantum team, and I'll explain that in just a moment. But the second thing you also need to remember is your Silver Wolf, and probably your other 2 units, these last 2 slots here, also probably want to be built for speed. This has kind of been a regular thing here, right? Speed can fix Dan Hung and Bibiter Lune. Speed can fix Kafka teams. Speed is very powerful because with certain rotation issues, speed can fix those things, like a Yukong. Yukong has issues with getting the buff on the right characters. Well, if you speed tune your team properly, she can put the buff reliably on the characters you want. This is kind of the same thing for Silverwolf, and here is why. Silverwolf has to go out there and apply quantum to the enemies. If she can't do that, you're not going to have quantum weakness on your enemies. So Silverwolf needs to be built fast enough in order to apply that weakness in front of the rest of your team. She's not going to probably be able to beat Seela after turn 1, because Seela starts buffing herself with her skill, but as long as Silverwolf is ahead of the rest of your team in speed, then she can reliably apply weakness to the enemies. That way they can continue to shield break even if they're only throwing out basic attacks, and slow down the rest of the team, apply quantum shield breaks, and just pop off, pop off, pop off. But you can't do that if the enemy doesn't have quantum weakness. And she's the only one. Silverwolf is the only one on the team that can apply quantum weakness, and she does it 1 at a time. So something to definitely remember about that. And that's the other reason why you're going to need to be really skill point efficient with your team. Because a lot of people are sitting here thinking to themselves, well, I need to be skill point efficient because I got Seela on my team, and she's so skill hungry that you kind of have to build around that. Well, don't forget that Silverwolf can only apply quantum weakness through her skill. So you're not only keeping Seela skill point efficient, but you also need to be skill point efficient with Silverwolf. Now, sure, once Silverwolf has applied enough quantum weakness to the enemies, then it doesn't matter as much. As long as Silverwolf is able to apply the quantum weakness to the enemies, then you can switch off of having to use her skill for a little while until it's necessary, and give all of your skill points to Seela. So you see that I have QQ here in this 3rd slot. This is a filler slot for right now. For me, I did level her in case I want to run dual DPS, but something to remember here is that it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a Lynx in her slot and a Xuan on this end slot. Because one thing to remember is that if I'm constantly hitting basic attacks with these last 2 slots right here, where Kinkyu is and this empty slot is, will Kinkyu actually be able to hit her skill as often as you think? Probably not. Every once in a while she will be able to do it. She does have an effect on her where she gets to use her skill at least once every battle for free. There's different things we can get out of Kinkyu. She has a passive ability that eventually will go off once you build up 4 tiles, and then she gets a powerful ability that can actually take an entire shield bar away as long as they're quantum weak. So she has a lot of value, and I don't want to take that away from her. But something to be aware of is that Lynx has passive abilities that help your entire team's sustainability, and so does Xuan. Xuan also has passive abilities that help your team's sustainability. And if these last two slots are constantly using constantly using basic attacks in order to keep skill point efficient for your Silverwolf and your Seela, there are plenty of battles where Kinkyu is really not going to be able to hit her skill that often. And although her basic attack does do some damage, there might be scenarios where, rather than have Kinkyu, you might want to use the old school team of healer and preservation unit. So just something to be aware of. Thankfully, we're not too worried about this, right? Because if you're pulling on part 2 of 1.3, Xuan and Lynx are on the same banner. It's likely if you're pulling for Xuan, you're gonna get a Lynx as well. Some people get really unlucky and that doesn't happen and it's really unfortunate. And the cool thing about QQ is that everybody gets one for free. She's literally a free unit that you get in the game. Everybody has at least one, right? So, at least, hopefully I'm not mistaken on that. But yeah, I believe everybody has a QQ because you get one for free. Otherwise, it would have been pretty bad because these are the only two other quantum units in the game, Silverwolf and Seela, at this time. And so, it would have been something that you had to pull for to get. So I didn't think, just like with Yukong, they gave us at least one unit of like every type relatively free. Like, we're gonna get at least one unit. Sushong, right? We're getting her for free too. But anyways, I wanted everyone to understand that you need to be skill point efficient in order to like optimize your mono quantum team. You need to have them built for speed as well in order to keep feeding Silverwolf and Seela skill points. So just so you are aware, Silverwolf wants to be fast. That's the most important part about the team. Seela's already going to go fast. She buffs herself. But these last two slots, I would also recommend building for speed so that they can have enough skill points that they're activating, right? If they're able to go 2 turns every other rotation, then they'll provide literally 2 more skill points every other rotation if you have them built for speed. And especially if you're running a preservation and a healer, you do not need any more sustainability. You simply do not. With a Xuan and a Lynx on your team, you can practically build them for attack. In fact, I think I'm going to build Xuan and Lynx for some damage to potentially see the reliability of like having those 2 sustain units and some extra damage going off at the same time. I might build one of them for break effect as well because we're going to be breaking some shields, right? So I just want everyone to be aware of that honestly a Lynx instead of a QQ here and a Xuan on the end, having them built for some power output rather than full-blown sustainability, I think is going to be really powerful because you only really probably need one of them to sustain your team. So if you have both of them, there's no reason why you couldn't build both for a little bit of power. Xuan, for instance, is going to have an AoE quantum effect. Dude, if Silverwolf goes out there and applies a bunch of weakness to the enemies, and then Xuan uses her ultimate, dude, you just shield broke the entire enemy squad at the same time. So, just something to think about there when you're building your mono quantum teams and how the synergies might work with a mono quantum team. I don't usually do a lot of demonstrations or like showcases, but when Mono Quantum comes out, I'll definitely do some showcases and stuff like that for you guys. Memory of Chaos, different things like that. If this video was entertaining to you in any way, shape, or form, please leave a like and subscribe, because if you don't subscribe, I'm gonna come to your house in the middle of the night, like the boogeyman, and I'm gonna steal your favorite midnight snacks. Probably those Oreos. Or maybe those Pringles you got in the pantry. Maybe the lasagna you got there in the refrigerator. I'm not picky. I'll come for whatever you got. So like and subscribe for more.